the year I made over $1 million was when I knew I was in Vegas for a poker tournament. I got the call that, hey, you're going to make $137,000 this month in sales commissions before your salary. Right then and there, hung over at the Cosmopolitan, staring up the ceiling, hanging up that call with my accountant for selling for Google. I'm like, I'm going to help everyone in the world make 6 and 7 figures in sales using the same platform that I did. And it was just like, okay, I'm going to party in Vegas. And then when I get home, I'm going all in. I'm burning the bridges. I'm burning the boats on this island to build this platform.
Welcome to Sales Secrets with Brandon Bornancin. On the daily, Brandon shares new secrets to help maximize sales and make more money today. Never miss a show by hitting the subscribe button now.
All right, Brandon, we are live with Brandon Bornancin. Now, Brandon is a sales and lead generation expert, serial salesperson. He generated over 100 million in sales deals while selling for IBM and Google. He's a 2-time 7-figure entrepreneur, expert sales speaker, sales trainer, sales author who's obsessed with helping you maximize your sales success. He's founder at Seamless.AI, delivering the world's best sales leads with the first search engine created for business professionals to find accurate phone numbers, emails, and intel for anyone they need to sell to. And as he writes, think if Google and LinkedIn, if they had a baby. Brandon, thanks so much for joining us today.
Dude, thank you so much for having me, Kurt. I'm such a fan of your content and of your branding and your marketing and the concept of the freedom lifestyle, which I can't crack. Maybe today you can teach me how to do that, but thanks so much. And I appreciate the intro. It makes me sound way cooler than I actually am. So
no. And likewise, we've been connected for a while on LinkedIn. I've enjoyed your content. We'll talk about all that. We'll talk about your line jumping to and paying someone $2,000 to ask Tom Bilyeu a question. Want to talk about all your books because you are building a brand. I mean, you got 15 books out there. You got your own website. You're building your brand. You got your company. You're going to these events, interviewing Gary Vee. You got the podcast. So you are building a brand. But in the end, Seamless.AI is about lead gen. And one of the reasons we we've always connected, but we reconnected recently was I was reading Art Subcheck's book, the 3rd edition of his book, Smart Calling. I interviewed him here last week. And you're featured in the book.
Great show, by the way. That was a great show.
Thank you. Yeah, Art is awesome. And there were some tactical things in his book that I put right away. But Brandon, I want to go back to so you're a serial salesperson right now, generating $100 million in sales, IBM, Google. But let's go back early and tell us how the impetus for your sales career, one of the impetuses, I don't even know the word there, was poker.
Yeah. I mean, this was pretty awesome. So, I got to be around my family. They were super poor. My dad got into sales with no college degree and went from sales intern to building the first $1 billion software company, software sales. And it IPO'd. So like right away when I was getting into college, I knew that we were moving into, low income family, coupons, garage sale close. And then like 5 years later, we move into a bigger house. And then 3 years later, we move into a bigger house. And then another, we kept moving into these like bigger mansions per se over the years as my father literally grew up in his sales career from sales intern to building the first $1 billion software company in the US. And when I was getting ready for college, I'm like, hey, I want to go into sales and entrepreneurship because I saw what my dad could do with no college degree. And when the only thing I knew how to do at that age was drink and play poker.
Well, sounds good.
Yeah, like nothing wrong with that. I mean, like literally me and the high school buddies, all we would do is play poker. And then we would go, I'm from Ohio. So we would drive from Ohio to Windsor so you could actually gamble and drink at 19. So we kept going back and forth like every other week to Canada to play poker and gamble. And then I started getting big into online poker and gambling. And like, I would make a bunch of money And then I would try to play at these really high stake tables where you're talking like multi-$1,000 hands. And I would get my ass kicked. I'd lose it all. Then I have to start back at the beginning, like $100 games, $500, $1,000, $10,000 pots. And then it happened again. I kept winning and then losing. And I'm like, God, there's got to be a better way to make a ton of money. I'm like, well, I love online poker. The US, this was in 2004, 5, 6, and 7, was obsessed with online poker. And I'm like, what if I just started selling and marketing for these sites? Party poker, poker stars, full tilt poker. Instead of like losing all my money trying to gamble with these high stakes poker players, what if I recruited them to play for these sites? And I cold called a bunch of the companies and pitched them like, pay me $250 a player. They laughed at me when I was a freshman in college. And they're like, but we'll pay you $100 a player. And I'm like, okay, sweet. So then as a freshman, this was like September of my freshman year, which is like the first month going into college. I just started knocking dorm room to dorm room. Hey, I work for Party Poker. I work for Full Tilt Poker. I'm going to get you set up with a free account. I'm going to pay you $50. Let me get you signed up right now. And then boom, I got paid $100. So I'm like, okay, I give you 50, I make $100. So then I just went campus to campus to campus, took it from hundreds to thousands to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands. And then I hit the entire Ohio University and then took it online. And that's when it went from like first year doing $1 million to $3 million, second year to $6 million the third year. And it capped out at about 10 to 11 million in sales by my junior year. And then they made online gambling illegal. And it just shut down in the US. It was wild. And then I parlayed that into another company where I lost $4 million 3 years of my life with my partners. And we went broke. And I remember sitting there crying and being a victim to entrepreneurship. I failed. And, there was a lot of lessons to why the second business failed. A lot of good stuff. And then from there, just got into sales because I wanted to quit entrepreneurship. And then was selling for IBM and Google. And then I just found it really expensive, time consuming, and difficult to like win new customers. And I found like I'm selling to these digital marketers like a Kurt at a digital agency or at big Fortune 500 companies. And you guys weren't in these databases that I would spend millions of dollars on. So working with Google engineers and IBM engineers and people in my network, I'm like, why can't we just build a search engine to find everyone you need to sell to? Why can't we use AI to research people's cell phones and emails so that we can empower the world to connect to opportunity? So built Seamless, went from $0 to $100 million in sales, became a multimillionaire again. That was the first time I became a millionaire as a W-2 employee, which I thought was badass. And like when I got the call that I made over 6 figures in 1 month, the year I made over $1 million was when I knew I was in Vegas for a poker tournament. I got the call that, hey, you're going to make $137,000 this month in sales commissions before your salary. Right then and there, hung over at the Cosmopolitan, staring up the ceiling, hanging up that call with my accountant for selling for Google. I'm like, I'm going to help everyone in the world make 6 and 7 figures in sales using the same platform that I did. And it was just like, okay, I'm going to party in Vegas. And then when I get home, I'm going all in. I'm burning the bridges. I'm burning the boats on this island to build this platform. And it's been a freaking wild ride.
Before I have some questions there, especially about the interesting notion of building an alternative search engine while you're doing sales for the search engine, right? Google, which is funny. But everyone who's joining now, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, we're grateful you're here. Don't be a lurker. Come in, say hello, share your city, your state, your name, your town, any questions, any comments, please come in, give us a like, hit the share button, whatever it is. I see Pedro's here, a number of people over on LinkedIn. Sometimes StreamYard and LinkedIn make it easy or make it not so easy to see who's joining us at any one time. But thank you all for joining us. So you're doing sales for Google.
Yep.
And you build an alternative search engine.
Which, by the way, that job was the best job in the world. So, like, I went from selling multi-million-dollar websites for IBM Interactive, and like, you know how hard it is to pitch Microsoft Xbox or YouTube or Adobe or Kohler faucets and be like, hey, we're going to build you a beautiful website. It's going to be sexy. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be amazing. And it's going to cost like $5.7 million. Like to share the return on investment of a website redesign to make it beautiful and global is really, it's a hard pitch to quantify because it's like, you don't know if it's going to work or not. You pray and you hope it does. And that's when I had the opportunity to sell for Google. It was like, you spend $1, you make $4. It reminded me of the poker deal because I'm like, okay, I give someone 50, I make 100, I make a lot of money. And that's how Google Ads was. So like, it was boom. But yeah, they had a search engine. It was so hard to find the digital marketers that I need to sell to at the Fortune 1000. So I'm like, well, let's just build our own search engine that finds all the contacts with the current titles. And then let's use AI like IBM Watson, but our own 10-step AI engine, and we'll research, validate, verify in real time their emails and cell phones. Because like I first built this list using the search engine, but I couldn't call and email them. Like I'm like, okay, now I have all these contacts and companies. How the hell am I going to connect with them? So it was like, first find all the people with the search engine. Then once the search engine was working great, I'm like, shit, I have to get their emails. I have to get their cell phones. And then it took years to build. It took about 2 years to build the search engine, another 2 years to build the 10-step AI engine to find the emails and cell phones. And by that time, like we almost went bankrupt 3 years in a row building it, and like wild war stories up, down, in between, to then now we help over 100,000 salespeople, marketers, and entrepreneurs generate billions in sales, hundreds of thousands of appointments. And it's just really invigorating. And the reason why we do it is because of this right here. This is the President's Club. So we created a global President's Club. This is called the Seven-Figure Club Award. Anyone that uses Seamless and makes over 7 figures in sales, we give them the 7-Figure Club Award. And our goal is to get you into the 6-Figure Club. Let me try to get this even. 6-Figure Club in 90 days of using Seamless, and the 7-Figure Club in 1 year or less using Seamless. And that's just my mission, man. I get to live. You talk about freedom and kind of like work-life balance. For me, freedom is being able to help people get into the President's Club 7 days a week. That's what my freedom is.
What size companies work with you? Range?
We work with startups to the Fortune 100. I mean, it's all over the board because the search, it'd be like, what type of searches can you do with Google? You're like, search for anything in the world that you want, right? So for us, you could search for any contact, any title, any company. You could build contact lists, company lists. It works for any salesperson, marketer, entrepreneur, sales teams, marketing teams, recruiters, anyone that's looking for a job, you name it. It's like global. If you need to connect with a B2B professional and you want to contact them, you could use it for anything. I've used it to build an 8-figure company. I've used it to hire nearly 100 employees. I've used it to raise millions in venture capital funding. I also used it to raise millions in venture debt. I've used it to interview the world's best podcast people like Kurt, like Jordan Belfort from The Wolf of Wall Street, Gary Vaynerchuk, Grant Cardone, you name it. You can connect with anyone. I connected with Elon Musk using it.
That's awesome.
Damon John, it's wild.
And you grew up, right? You write in your book, 7-Figure Social Selling, which I believe is that's your newest book, right? From April, but you have one on the way here. But in that book, you write about your dad, who you talked about earlier, who's in sales, always told you, right? Get a good sales list and work it day and night. So you grew up with that conditioning.
Yeah, I grew up if you want to make unlimited amount of money, you have to go into sales, but it's hard, it's stressful, and you have to work your ass off. And then like once my father taught me that, it was like, okay, well, what are the mechanics of it? And he's like, you got to, when you're selling in business hours, because this was like back in the day where you have to drive to meetings and you have to meet in person and like, it's like field sales. So if you're already losing 2 to 4 hours with travel, you can't lose 2 to 3 or 4 hours to try to figure out who to call, then make those calls, then be on the road. Where my father he would be up at 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. building lists. And then in the evening, he'd hang out with us for an hour or two and then spend the evening like building these lists. And he just always said, like, you got to sell when you're in sales business hours. And then anything else that has nothing to do with making money and selling, do off the clock, even if it means putting in more time.
Yeah. And that, having a process is so important because, and part of that process, I've learned, but I see for a lot of people is, like you said, if you're spending time building the list and chasing phone numbers down and doing all those things, you're not spending your time selling. So coming into your time blocked call time.
Yep.
Me as an entrepreneur, my time block is 9 to 10 every morning. I just call.
Oh,
and
awesome.
I make
that's
calls
great.
And I do those things because I'm servicing my clients the rest of the day. I'm doing these other things. There's some people who don't have that process, but even if you do have a process, if you only have an hour, 2 hours a day, right? And you're an entrepreneur, you spend a half hour or 45 minutes looking for lists. That's money out the door, right?
Yeah, 100%. Anything I try to automate anything that doesn't deal with empowering the world to connect opportunity or like getting Seamless out into the world to help more people. Like, what lives could be positively changed if you were just connecting with the people that you serve and then helping them accomplish what they want to accomplish. If I burn 3 hours or 5 hours or 10 hours doing manual endless list building or research or whatever, and I'm not like helping Kurt get to the next entrepreneur who may end their life because they're on the verge of burnout, COVID stressed them out. Like, these are real people. We talk to them all the time where you're literally saving and making people's lives. I believe that you're one list away from the life you want, the marriage you want, the family you want, the houses, the cars, the vacations, everything you want in your life is just one list away. And you have to just go find the list, connect with the list, and create that opportunity.
So run us through it for people who aren't familiar with Seamless. What's the experience like, and how does it make Joe, Jane, entrepreneur, business owner, sales rep, how does it make their life better? They go in, they sign up. All right, great. I got Seamless now. Changed my life.
Yeah. I mean, so what's great is, we built a freemium software so you could just jump on the platform for free. And that was a way for us to just positively impact more people. My mission for any of you that know me, or I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn, is to just positively impact 1 billion people. And part of that was creating this like free software. So then you go in there and it's very much like Google, where you type in any title, any company, any keywords, you name it. And then you'll see a list, search engine results of all the people that work at the companies that you want to market to, sell to, build relationships with. So if you're looking for a job, I recommend putting HR, human resources, recruiting, talent acquisition, and then all the industries or types of companies that you want to go find a job at. If you're in sales, you would type in the personas that you sell to, and then the industries, companies, revenue, location, you name it, and Seamless will find literally 90% of the people in your total addressable market. And then when you click the find button on the platform, we research emails and cell phones for all those individuals. And then what's great is, if you love the free platform, you can upgrade to unlimited sales leads for less than $100 a month. It's very cost effective.
It's interesting that when you talk about, you type in your persona, know your persona. How often do you run in? Because I run into this from a branding point of view. Business owners, and I was recently at a sales boot camp where some seasoned sales folks did not have or could not clearly identify their customer persona. It was like everyone, the universe is my customers, and it's like, I assume with something like that, it's like, no amount of technology in the world, you're going to save, but then you got to make the calls, right? How often do you run across folks like that just have not really delved down into or by the time they come to you, are they seasoned enough that they're going to have an ideal customer persona?
No, I think it's all over the board. And I love brand. Like, I can't wait to dive into some of the branding stuff because I think you're a guru at it. And part of branding is knowing who you serve, right? Your customer personas. So I believe that you have to pick a niche and get rich. Like, you just have to pick a niche to get rich. If Kurt was like, I help anyone in the world work less, spend more time with family, and make more money. Like, that's like walking into an airport or a train station and yelling, hey, everyone, look at me, look at me. I'm Kurt, look at me. Hey, everyone, stop what you're doing. Look at me, look at me. But when you pick a niche and get rich, it's like going into the same airport. And let's just say you're like, hey, Mike Stafford, who's headed to the Memorial Tournament in Columbus, Ohio for the PGA Golf. I've got something for you. And then he turns around and he's like, hey, what's up? Do I know you? Like, that's the ability to cut through the noise, connect with your prospect, deliver value, and light them up like a Christmas tree or, whatever, Hanukkah tree, whatever you celebrate. The only way to do that is if you've got personas and you go real deep in a niche, because like most people think, I could serve everyone. When you try to serve everyone, you serve no one.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you try to speak to everyone, I always like to say, when you speak to everyone, you speak to no one, and it's vanilla. And to me, vanilla sounds like poverty, because it's just like you said, and you're not speaking to the outcomes of your client, like solve a problem for them. Right.
Yeah,
it's not.
And another part of that too, like, I don't know about you, Kurt, but I think, I got this nailed after 4 or 5 years. It took me years to figure out, be Brandon and be authentic and be who you are in branding. Because like IBM and Google, you got to be perfect, corporate, perfect, respectful, like governed essentially. Like, you can't, IBM, I couldn't disagree with my bosses. Like, it was very locked down. And then Google, it was like, okay, you could kind of have personality and be yourself. And that was when I really kind of like started to be me and built Seamless and became an entrepreneur. And then when I launched Seamless, I just really recognized the power of 100% authenticity and then overcoming and branding. No matter what you do, people will either love you or hate you. Mm-hmm. And I still have a problem with this today, but I just keep going. I've got this podcast, just like you have this show and this podcast, like you pour your heart and soul into it. And then you have people that will be like, I hate it. You suck. Right. I hate looking at you. I hate hearing your voice. And that just kills you as someone that's trying to create content to deliver value. But I believe that if you stay 100% authentic, you don't quit, and you just have to recognize that in branding and in marketing and in advertising and in selling, half the people are going to love you, half the people are going to hate you, and just don't worry about the other half. Like, if you realize that you're delivering value in what you do in your branding and your content, the 50% that decided to not like you for whatever reason are going to lose because you keep delivering value that could possibly change their life. And,
absolutely.
That was the biggest thing for me. Number one was being authentic and branding and who you are. And number two was stop being so damn concerned about what people think. People are going to watch this. I'm trying to, like, you and I are going to try to maximize value for the people tuning in. Other people will be like, I got nothing out of it. And our goal is to just keep trying to help the people that are looking for any nugget that could possibly change their life.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had a LinkedIn article 2 years ago, and it was I'm not much of an article guy, but it had like 40,000 views, and it was why you shouldn't be afraid to piss more people off. And it was about the fact that if just by being you're going to piss people off. We homeschool our kids. There are people who literally physically get pissed off when I tell them that, like we're somehow letting down the world, whatever. And it's fine. And I laugh. And, my wife and I have different personalities in that regard. But I remember driving through, we were on a 2-week vacation in California. And I remember where we were. We had just gone to visit the new Apple Infinite Loop, and they had a new, and they had a new visitor center. So we're in Cupertino. And I looked down, and I had done a video that said, what's your biggest, hey, business people, what's your biggest challenge today? And some dude wrote in, my biggest challenge is looking at your goddamn face. And I was laughing. And my wife, Julie's like, how can you deal with that? How can you deal with that? I'm like, I don't know. I had older brothers. I'm used to it. It was funny, but it is, there are people, when you put yourself out there, no matter what you say, no matter what it is, people are going to come out, and no matter who you are, you have a brand, whether you like it or not. And some of the people who say, I don't have a brand, I try to get along with everyone. Some of them have the strongest brands. They just don't realize it. And, Gary Vee, a lot of people don't like Gary Vee. And you know what? He laughs all the way to the bank.
I mean, and you could look at other people like Kim Kardashian. You could look at, I mean, Donald Trump. You could look at anyone that's got a strong opinion has a massive following.
Right.
Like they have aggressive opinions. Elon Musk, all of these, like Gary Vaynerchuk, all these people, David Mettler, like they all have really big followings, and they're very opinionated. Like I think in branding, you have to know what you believe in and what you don't believe in, and as long as you don't care if your opinion's right or not.
Yeah.
So I'm with you, Kurt. I went to public schools, I went to private schools, and I believe that my fiance and I are the smartest two people that could bring up our kids, hands down. Outside of like Harvard, MIT, Yale, whatever, professors, which I'm probably not going to pay. I think that we'd be the best people to teach our kids if and when we have kids. I'll actually probably hire the Harvard people. Like I love that, and I'm okay saying that. Danielle and I, we believe homeschool your kids is what we're gonna do. But I don't look at people that have their kids go to public or private schools like, oh my gosh, you're crazy. It's like I respect what everyone believes in, and you just share what you believe and what you feel.
Absolutely. No, 100%, 100%. And so, you're at Google, you build Seamless, then you go and start Seamless, and you're helping people, right?
Yeah.
And obviously you build the company. And by the way, I want to give a shout out to Kelvin. Great live chat. Thanks so much, Kelvin, for joining us. Appreciate it. Feel free, jump in, share your comments, your questions, your agreements, your disagreements. Love them all. So when did you decide to say, all right, we're building the company, we're selling product. Now, you know what I want to do? I want to go out and write 15 books, start branding myself, start showing up on stages, start a podcast, all that.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It's like a really good, like, I love that because I think it was a strategic shift that I recognized. So it took us 2 years, 2 to 3 years to actually build the platform, because like building a search engine that finds everyone in the world that you need to connect to for opportunity and then get their emails and cell phones is like virtually impossible. It's the dumbest it's the dumbest company that you could build. But if you nail it, you're going to positively impact a lot of people and you're going to help a lot of people make a lot of money or connect to new jobs that can provide for their families and you name it. So we almost went bankrupt year after year because it took so long to build. I was a multimillionaire. And then the first 2 years I paid myself $0, like 7 days a week. Like, and again, like why I was so attracted to your content and your course and everything that you do, Kurt, is like, I'm the exact opposite of what you teach, but I'm fulfilled.
Right.
So it's interesting. Exactly. I have this complex of like, I love working 7 days a week. I have no work-life balance. Work and life to me is balance. Like my life is seamless. My life is positively impacting a billion people. And I'm trying to like figure out, okay, well, how can I change that a little bit? But when it comes to your question about when did you switch from marketing the company to marketing like you and your content, I realized I was going through like LinkedIn and Facebook, and you see people that like and follow companies, and it's like 1,000, 3,000, 5,000. How many times, like, do you wake up every day and you're like, man, I cannot wait for that one pillow company to post a picture on their Facebook wall so that I could see it and then engage with it? Or, hey, like, I can't wait for that ad agency or that IT software company to post the new white paper on the LinkedIn wall. Like, no one gives a shit about the IT white paper.
Right.
So like, I just realized, oh my gosh, no one's following these companies because there's no connection. It's like a fake person. And I'm like, well, why aren't more people becoming the companies? Like,
Yeah.
me and our whole team of nearly 100 employees, we're all Seamless and we represent Seamless. Like, why isn't the CEO of every company out there 24/7 promoting their story, their beliefs, their mission, their vision? And I just realized seeing a lot of these power players in the space who were doing it, just changing the game.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, okay, I literally wrote down like 1 year in 2017. I'm like, I want to get to $1 million. I want to get to one published book. I want to write a blog post a week. And like, then I did that. And I kept multiplying it by 5 to 10x. And it's like, okay, I went from hey, I want to go from 1 million to 10 million. I want to go from one book to 10 books. And it's like, okay, 10 books to 100 books, 10 million to 100 million. And I just realized like people follow people and their journey. And I used to be scared to document my journey. Yeah, I had like a fucked up childhood with my family. My dad was on the road. My mom came from an abusive family. My mom was very abusive, negative. I pretty much was like, yo, I'm not listening to anyone at 14 to 15 years old. And I went out on my own pretty much. And then eventually, built my first company was a huge success. My second company was a complete failure. I used to be scared to talk about the second company in mobile being a complete failure, losing $4 million over the course of 3.5 years, going bankrupt, stealing food to eat. Used to be scared about talking about garage sales and being super poor, and then selling for IBM and Google, quitting entrepreneurship as a failure. And you just realize like, dude, that's just part of the journey.
Yeah.
And you have to appreciate the ups and the downs. And I just realized if I could share one thing about my journey, and if I could positively impact one person, maybe one person hears something about my journey that makes them lift off, that helps them skyrocket, that helps them go in the right direction, that helps them believe in themselves, that helps give them the motivation to maximize their potential personally and professionally, then that was the evolution for me. When I realized like, it's not about what anyone thinks. Every piece of content or anything I do, marketing, advertising, writing, videos, podcasts, whatever, products, if I could possibly impact one person, I would always say it's worth it. And then that way, when you think, damn, is this video, this iPhone video about whatever topic, is this dumb? Be like, okay, well, if someone was trying to learn about this topic, would they get value out of it? Because it's so easy to be your biggest critic.
Yeah.
And if you just realize, like, if I could just help one person, you'll just keep doing more and more and more activity. And then you become limitless. Like, I'm a guy that got C grades in English in grade school. This book's in print, 450 pages. In the ebook, it's 700 pages. I don't know how to write. I didn't study how to write. And it's been a number one bestseller. It became a number one bestseller in 12 hours. I didn't do any book launch. I literally realized the book was done. I put it for sale on a Saturday, no plan, 2 p.m. in my house. And I'm like, hey, LinkedIn, I just published my book. Here's the link. Check it out. Boom. Skyrockets it. Now, I don't say that to brag about myself. I just say like, I had no plan. I'm not special. If I could do it, you could do it. And that's the whole point of all this stuff.
Yeah. And there's a number of things in there that I'd like to unpack, but a lot of folks, and you see this, and LinkedIn is full of this, right? So I like to talk about the difference between an authority brand and a commodity brand. An authority brand is trusted advisor. We are the X factor in our space. Like, you want to come with us, right? A commodity brand is like, oh yeah, pass me the box of Kleenex, but it's not even Kleenex brand, right? It's El Cheapo, dime a dozen. And people who try to build their brands just based on likes, views, color scheme, logo, all that. But and I think a lot of people, when they hear branding, they think that's all it is. And branding really is fuel that can be poured on top of sales. They're different, but they're the same. And so when you talk about connecting the dots, a lot of people, I actually talked with some clients today who kind of saw them as totally different pieces. Okay, you do branding over here and you bring people through you through law of attraction. But then sales is over here. I'm like, right, but when you bring people to you, are you not looking at branding as perhaps a lead generation tool where you bring people in? Then what do you do with them, right? Then you got to pick up the phone and call them, because you know this. I mean, there's a lot of people who will lurk out there. And if you never just poke at them and say, hey, Jim, Jane, what are your challenges today? And all of a sudden they become a client. They never would have had you not had those conversations with them. But you gotta find them first. So there's a lot of sales folks out there who don't do much branding. Or don't get branding, or for instance, and this is a topic I'd like to discuss. So, 7-figure social selling. Yep. There's a lot of sales folks who out there who will say social selling is not selling. I've interviewed a number of sales folks. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, you just leverage all the channels. Like, I know you ran your own ad agency and it was a huge success. And I come from marketing for IBM and Google. When I woke up, I never said, is Facebook better than Google, better than LinkedIn ads, better than SEO, better than content? I just always worked with my clients to use all the channels and go all out, always in all ways. Like, I recommend go all out, always, in all ways. And that means you have to leverage an omni-channel approach. You have to leverage every multi-channel there is. Like, you can't be prejudiced to social selling, to cold calling, to voicemail, to text, to email, to video. I know people that just make millions of dollars doing video. I know people that make millions of dollars doing cold calling, doing emailing, doing social selling. But how much could you make if everyone that was using one channel made $1 million? Imagine what they could make using all the channels. It's 5 to 10x greater.
Yeah.
So I'm just a big believer. I don't worry about the channel. It's pretty much my mind map. Like, I use a mind map for everything I do. And at the core, it's just, does this help my audience become better? Right? That value, the thing, like, can this help one person? That's at the core. And then you figure out what you want to share that could help your audience maximize their success. And then you worry about the distribution. Distribution's easy. Whether you do it in cold calling, emailing, social selling, video, texting, direct mail, content marketing, word of mouth, social media, it's all, distribution's easy. The hard part is value, and then content creation that matches that value to change people's lives. So don't worry about the channel, worry about the actual asset or the message that you're trying to share with the world.
And one thing that you said in the previous part of the discussion is, no one wakes up saying, I really want to see this post from XYZ company, right?
Yeah. I'm dying to see that post from Microsoft today.
Yeah, right.
Does that? I've never heard anyone say that.
But a lot of people get hooked into the B2B or B2C, and they forget the P2P, right? The person to person, the human to human. And branding, you can build that. But when you were working for Google, it was Brandon on the phone with another human being in the end, right? And so that person was buying from you. Now, you were offering the impact that Google provided on their life and making their life better.
Yep.
But in the end, Jimmy across the hall might not have closed that deal, because in the end, it's two humans having a conversation.
Yeah, 100%. I think, and it goes back to just being so results focused on the customer, the prospect, in branding, in marketing, in sales, in anything that you do, to where if you could be all in on helping whoever you're talking to, peer-to-peer, B2C, B2B, like I don't see B2B or B2C. Like I just see these are all the people that I could help. They work at these types of companies, or they're just on their own. There's people that don't work anywhere and they buy the book.
Yeah.
It's just how can you help all these people? Everyone's just trying to get better, and everyone has problems, and everyone has pain. There's, whether it's losing family members, sick kids, like, maybe you're poor or rich, or you have it all, you lost it all, you've got an addiction. Like everyone's got something that's messed up with them. And we're all just trying to become the best that we can be. And when you really try to match that, when you try to really just help people maximize their potential, I think that's when you become limitless, because it's so core to like, people will want to follow you. People want to be a part of your mission when you do.
Yeah. And I love the fact you keep using the word help and help people. And that gets lost a lot of times, not just in branding and sales, a lot of times in branding and sales, right? Where everyone tries to lead with the products and the features and the bells and the whistles. And I'm so passionate in this. It's like the customer doesn't give a shit, right? They want to know,
Right.
they have empathy for you as a human being, right? I'm sure they do. But if they're going to hand over their money, they want some value in return, and that value is where you help them. But that's just business. I mean, that's in a true free market. If we ever have one again, and if we ever actually had one, that's what it is, right? It's you are improving the life of someone else. You could be selling golf balls, widgets, high-end consulting, or sales leads, but you're improving the life of someone else. And I just feel like a lot of people lose sight of that. And when they do, they come across as desperate. They don't believe in what they're selling.
Yeah. I call it, commission breath.
Yeah.
You got bad commission breath, or like sales slimy, sketchy. It's easy to do, especially like if you're in a bind. And that's why branding, people are probably like, what did branding even mean? Like it's just adding value to your audience over the long term. Like most people miss the long term. So this book took me a year to write, a year to edit. It took me forever. And while I'm building, the 23rd fastest Inc. 5,000 growing company, so I'd wake up at 5 a.m. and I'd write, and I'd write from 6 to 10 p.m. Mainly from 5 to 7 a.m. I would just write all morning. And luckily, when I was selling for IBM and Google, I already wrote tens of thousands of scripts and strategies that I had in endless Word docs that I would use to go from 0 to 100 million. So I basically built my list using Seamless. Then I had all my scripts and strategies, and then you pair them together, you automate selling forever. And I'm like, I want to document, like I gave Seamless to the world. And then my next big secret were all my 7-figure sales scripts. And I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm ever giving this to anyone. That's what I said about Seamless. I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm giving this to anyone. This is my secret weapon. I'm going to be rich. And then like when you that's the gut reaction, especially in branding. When you start thinking about yourself,
right?
That's when you got to be like, you selfish piece of shit. And that's like super aggressive, but it's really hard to do. I was a millionaire, and then you start to get egotistical, and you're like, no, I'm going to keep this to myself. And then like, I remember getting that call, and I just went all in on the customer and driving results. And then it changes the game, but you have to play the long game. So doing this book, I knew is playing the long game, because guess what? If I help 20 people and they find a ton of value, and then maybe they become a customer, or maybe they refer me to a ton of customers, and I change a bunch of people's lives, and then they recommend Seamless or me to someone. Like I interviewed Ryan Serhan from $1 Million Listing, and he's a big user of Seamless, and he came on my podcast, and like Jeffrey Gittimer and all these amazing people were because I was able to connect with them, because I was helping so many other people that got me in connection with these people, or just cold prospecting using Seamless emails and phone numbers. And it was because I was playing the long game. And for the first 2 to 3 years, dude, I mean, you go back to my YouTube, and by the way, my YouTube sucks. My LinkedIn's a lot better. I don't know how to like do the YouTube thing right.
I'm trying to figure it out. Yeah. I haven't figured out anything other than LinkedIn, and I'm going for consistency. I'm going for some other things. And, I'm like, I'll give it a year and see if I got to bring someone on to like do something with it. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just for different people, right? Like YouTube was great for Gary, and like, I'm all in on LinkedIn because that's where my audience is
Right.
at. I think you got to go where your audience is at. My marketing team tried to make me diversify.
Yeah.
You got to be on Twitter. You got to be on Google, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm like, guys, that's not picking a niche and getting rich. I was like, where is 90% of our audience? Okay, they're on LinkedIn. What jobs do they do? They do sales and marketing. Okay, mainly sales. Okay, they're on LinkedIn 24/7 prospecting. Where do you think we should spend all of our time creating content and delivering value? Yeah, LinkedIn. They're like, well, what if LinkedIn shuts down? And then you're screwed. It's like, if LinkedIn shuts down, we're all screwed. So, it doesn't matter. It's like Gary Vee didn't try to do videos on 50 different platforms. He did on, Wine Library TV on YouTube for 7 or 9 years straight. So when I started doing videos on LinkedIn, it was like 30 views, 70 views, 20 views, articles and posts, 50 views for months. But guess what? Okay, who's this Brandon guy? I kind of like that. Boom, boom, a little bit more. So, and then you get better. The key is like the consistency in playing the long game. I got really good at writing because I committed to writing every day. I got really good at content, and like good or bad, right? Like I believe I'm a 1 out of 100 in everything I do. So I'm just using this as like analogy. I got better at writing, at podcasts, at videos like this, at speaking, because the more you do, the more you learn what not to do.
Right.
Shit. I screwed up that last video before Kurt. The lighting was off and I didn't have a mic. So my sound sounded like shit. Okay, well, then the next time you go get the mic, you fix the lighting. You're like, okay, I need a different video camera. I need this type. I need to talk about these topics. You just get better and better and better. So then after year 1, doing it every day, year 2, it's like, dude, I'm double. My content's double as powerful as the first year. And then it goes like 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. It's this multiplier.
Yeah.
It's like this X factor to where the consistency helps you become so good at marketing, branding, content, sales. And anything you do, you got to do it every day. You got to do it in large quantities, and you got to have the mission and the purpose. And in my opinion, that's the way you crush branding. The reason why I did the books was because I believe that play the long game, 16 books, everything about sales, everything I learned about making 7 figures in sales for all the different channels. And I think that if I could help a lot of people make a lot of money with those books, they'll want to work with me or refer me and our company in the future.
That long game is so important too, because it builds authenticity, but it also, if you're consistent and you just have a process, you don't get as hung up on, let's face it, the LinkedIn algorithm. Some weeks I'm like, are they banning me? Am I shadow banned or something? It's like, I can't tell. And then, 2 years ago, it was like 400,000, 300,000 views. Now it's like 3,000, 2,000. Yeah. But when you're consistent, it doesn't matter, because what you find is, sometimes what I've found is, even the more views you get, sometimes it's more noise and the right people can't find you. And that's really the key, right? I call it the law of the few. Like, I don't care if 100 people see me. I want the 5 who need what I'm selling. And then we can have that conversation. Although it makes me feel good if I get more, but that's the dopamine, right? I'd rather have it fill my wallet, and help people with the content. So you got an upcoming book. It's coming out. Would love to hear about that. And tell us why you paid, and it's in relation to the book, why you paid someone at an event $2,000 to jump the line to ask Tom Bilyeu a question.
Yeah, that was wild. So I was at this marketing event. Well, yeah, the new book, Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. Part of my success came after my second company that lost $4 million. I went bankrupt. It was mainly because, one, I didn't know how to build the list of all the B2B marketers. I needed to sell my text messaging software too. So I didn't have the list of the B2B marketers at the Fortune 500, Fortune 1000. 2, I didn't listen to any advisors, entrepreneurs, coaches on anything to build this second company. So I got lucky in B2C, my poker company. I just got lucky. I knew everything about poker. I knew how to sell it, market it. Well, then when I transitioned to B2B as a 21, 22-year-old, I didn't know shit about selling and marketing to B2B companies in college. The Fortune 1000 as a 20-year-old pitching against a whatever age, $40 million backed VC tech company. Like, are you going to go with the guys in New York, Madison Square? Or are you going to go with Brandon at OU with his team of 30 interns and employees? So, the reason why all my companies, that company failed because of the list, and then because I got so egotistical from my first success that I didn't listen to anyone, got this massive 20,000 square foot office space, hired 30 to 50 people, and had like $10,000 in sales a month, right? So I was burning 100,000 to a million. I'm barely making 10,000. And all my advisors and coaches and investors were like, work out of your dorm room. Don't worry about PR. Don't worry about marketing. Only do product development and sales. And I'm like, no, you guys don't know what you're talking about. I was so worried the world needed to know how successful and smart I am. And I had to get the big office space and do all the press and basically all the shit that a lot of highly powered venture capital backed companies do right now when like they don't have a ton of sales and a ton of product to like create this like fake growth. I fell victim to that. So fast forward 10 years, 5 years after that, I became very coachable. And I realized I got my ass kicked because I wasn't coachable. I became egotistical. I thought that I knew it all. And when you think that you know everything, you know nothing. And luckily I learned that at 23, 22, and lost everything. So I was just so hungry from 22 to 30. I read hundreds of books, all the best salespeople, the best marketers, the best entrepreneurs. I would buy all their books, read all their books. So when I launched Seamless, I was like, one of the things that I want to do is I want to launch a sales interview book where we interview the world's best sales experts. And it was half selfish for me. I'm like, I would love to interview all the people that I've read to get their one-on-one advice. And everyone in my network would probably love to hear their top sales secret. So instead of having to do what I did, I had to read 300 books. That took years and hundreds of thousands of hours of time. I'm like, what if I could just meet with all these experts, the people that I've read their books or whatnot, or follow on LinkedIn and read their blogs? What if I could just get their top sales secret and share it? And that's sales secrets from the top 1%. So then I'm at this event. Let's go to the $2,000 question. So we've done over 100 chapters in the book, and we get to this event, and there's like 5,000 people. There's no sponsorships. There's nothing. It's like all on lockdown. Can't do any marketing. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, with me and like 4 of my people to represent Seamless, I'm like, how do I get on stage? How do I market this thing? And then Tom was speaking, and I heard that they were going to do a Q&A. And like at this 5-day event, it's the only way someone has any means of marketing, advertising, branding. And I knew I wanted to get Tom the book, and to get him one-on-one outside of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity would be like impossible.
Yeah.
And I remember I noticed that I'm watching him speak, and then I see them set up 3 microphones. This convention center's got 5,000 people. And like, ironically, 5 rows down, there's a microphone. I'm like, there hasn't been a microphone in 3 days. Why is there a microphone? I'm like, holy shit, they're going to open it up to Q&A. And I guarantee you, it's either going to be pre-planned Q&A with people in advance, or people are just going to run.
Yeah.
I get up like right as it's ending. I sprint to the microphone, and I'm beat by 2 people.
Ugh.
So now you've got this one microphone. It's 2 people, me, and then like 50 people behind me. Then you've got 2 other microphones, and Tom is taking questions for 8 minutes or something, right? And I'm like, okay, so there's 2. I'm like, depending on the position, if they go left to right, right to left, I'm like number 8. I was like 8 minutes, 10 minutes of questions. I'm like, I don't know. This is going to be a long shot. I was like, if they start on my side, I think I could be the last one to ask. And then right away, okay, we're going to take questions on the left side. And I'm like, fuck. They started on the other side. So now they're going to go 111, 222, 333. I'm totally out. I'm totally out. So I go up. I tap the guy on the shoulder. You know, there's a person here, and then there's another person ahead of him. I'm like, I reach in, I tap him. I'm like, hey, man. He's like, hey, what's up? I'm like, hey, I'll give you $1,000 cash right now to cut you. I was like, you'll still be able to ask Tom Bellew from Impact Theory a question. I was like, I want to interview him for my book. And like, he didn't believe me. Like, he just thought I was like some crazy guy. And he turned around and I'm like, hey, buddy. Yeah. No, I'm serious. Like, I'll give you $1,000. I'll give you $1,000 right now. Let me cut you. I need to ask Tom this question. And like, he thought about it for a minute and he's like, no. He says no. So then it goes from this person to a lady who's on the second mic. She talks about her whole life story. This is like, you're supposed to ask one quick question. So Tom can answer. She spends 5 minutes telling her whole life story, the ups and downs, doesn't even get to a question. And while that's going on, I'm like, okay, that was 2 minutes. We're on like 4 minutes and we haven't even had a question. They're only going to be able to do one more and then it's a wrap. So I'm like, I'm in a Seamless.AI t-shirt. I'm at this event. I'm like, this is it. I was like, if I don't get this mic, this one shot, like after that, it's over. So I tap the guy on the shoulder and I pull up PayPal. And I'm like, hey, $2,000 cash. It will cover your food. It will cover your hotel. It will cover everything you need this whole weekend. I will PayPal it to you right now. I need to ask Tom a question for my book. So he turns around again and I'm like, oh my God, is this guy not taking it? And then he turns around. He's like, you'll PayPal it right now. I was like, I'll PayPal it right now. And my video guy's there taking the video of this going down. And I quickly PayPal'd him. He got out of the way. 10 seconds, I'm up. And it was like, so now I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? One, I got to market my company.
Yeah.
Two, I got to market my book and get Tom into the book. And I got to get his permission live to be in the book. So then I don't have to try to connect with him outside of the book to get his permission. So like right away, hey, I'm Brandon with Seamless.AI. We find everyone's emails and cell phones to empower the world to connect to opportunity. You can join for free. And then I go into like, I'm the author of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where we interview sales experts like yourself on your top sales secret. And Tom, I'd love to hear, what is your number one top sales secret? So then he spends 3 to 5 minutes on his top sales secret. It was actually, I think, 2.5 minutes. It felt like 10 minutes. And then thank you, Tom, so much. You know, he ends, they clap, and I'm like, hey, thank you Tom, so much. I appreciate you giving me permission to be in the book. And he's like, yes, no problem. And boom, it was like, dude, we just did it.
That's it.
The whole event had me with the t-shirt, me with the talking about the company. There's like 50 million cameras. There's 10 widescreen TVs at this stadium. Now I've got Seamless marketed to 5,000 to 10,000 people for $2,000. I got Tom Bellew in the book. I got social media content because my video guys are there. And I was the only person at the event to be able to do growth hack the whole time. 5 days.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So when's the book coming out? Where can people pre-order it yet? Or
yeah, so you can get the book at secretsalesbook.com, secretsalesbook.com. You could also tune into the podcast interviews on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Mixcloud. Just search Sales Secrets from the Top 1%. That's what the book is called. And it's basically 5 pages per expert that we interview. So an introduction, what is their top sales secret? Why is it their top sales secret? And how does the audience execute their top sales secret? And it's already 150 plus interviews with the world's best sales experts. I mean, this is going on. This is like Tool of Titans, Tim Ferriss. It's pretty big. I mean, it's like 300, 400 pages, but just of like multimillionaires, billionaires, experts giving you their number one sales secret to maximize sales success.
That's awesome. And Brandon, if people want to learn more about Seamless, they go to Seamless.AI. Pretty easy, right?
AI, join for free. You just need to use a business email and you'll be set up in 2 seconds and you'll be able to connect with anyone faster than ever before.
So we'll put all these links in the show notes. So final question I want to ask you, when we talk about an authority brand, Brandon, what is your authority? What are you an authority in?
Authority brand. I mean, I'm trying to learn every day and like just get my ass kicked being egotistical with my second company at the age of 22. I don't think I'm an authority on anything. But I feel like I've learned a lot in sales, in entrepreneurship, and in marketing. Selling over $100 million in sales, building 2 multi-million, 7-8-figure businesses, building a company that lost millions, and raising millions in venture capital funding. So like I have a lot of experience in sales and entrepreneurship and marketing and venture capital. And I just try to share what I learn from everyone that I learn from and from my day-to-day life experience.
Awesome. Well, Brandon, thanks so much for joining us today. Thank you everyone who joined us live. Thanks so much. Go to Seamless.AI and go to salessecretsbook.com.
Thank you for listening to Sales Secrets with Brandon Bornancin. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss an episode that drops on the daily. Your success is our success.